This is America in Space, a weekly news and information program on current events dealing with the space industry.
Welcome, and thanks for joining me today. I'm Dawn Meyer, Space Coast News Editor. The Artemis II mission is moving forward. They recently moved the newly refurbished Mobile Launch Platform, or MLP, to the launch pad following the modifications and repairs completed on it after the Artemis I launch back in November of 2022. The MLP is responsible for transporting and supporting NASA's Artemis moon rockets and includes a mobile launch tower rather than the fixed tower or pad as was used for the Space Shuttle. Another of the new modifications is the tower's egress system, which astronauts and ground teams would use to escape the launch pad during an emergency. The new one has to work with a mobile platform. Here is Eric Von Aken of Orlando News 6 speaking with Jose Morales, the NASA Senior Project Manager of Pad 39B, about the new egress system and what makes it different from the Space Shuttle egress system.
NASA, as we know, has contingency plans for just about everything. This one involves connecting a thick cable from that point all the way to the top of the launch pad, to the top of the SLS rocket, in case astronauts need to abort. Essentially, it's a zip line that will carry them from there to here if there is some sort of an emergency. This one, though, is going to be very different than the days of the shuttle.
2, 1, release!
This was the plan if shuttle astronauts had to leave the launch pad in a hurry, climb into the basket, and soar down to the surface where they'd get into a waiting armored car and drive to safety. The cables had to be attached and tensioned precisely, but only once.
But the baskets were always at the top of the tower.
And the cables were always in place.
And the cables were always in place. Now, it's a process that we will, or the ops people will have to perform every time the mobile launcher comes into the pad.
Remember, the mobile launch tower that the SLS lifts off from moves back and forth to the pad. The old launch tower never moved.
So certainly, if every time the mobile launcher rolls up to the pad, you have to connect all of these cables, that now takes extra time that you got to get it out here.
There's gonna be a time that they will have to add to the whole launch processing system in order to connect those cables and obviously after the launch disconnect the cables and take them back to the mobile launcher.
Jose Morales, in charge of all the upgrades to the launch pad, tells me connecting and tensioning the cables will take as long as a week once the mobile launcher rolls out with the rocket. But it's a necessity for Artemis II and beyond, Morales says, because of course astronauts will be on board and lives will be at stake.
Once the spooling and the tensioning system is installed here, the mobile launcher then has to roll out to the launch pad, and they got to hook up all the cables from here to there to make sure that this escape system actually works. Then the mobile launcher has to roll back to the vehicle assembly building. They got to start stacking the rocket on top of it.
With the MLP in place, the crew will soon take part in a launch systems test as they continue to prepare for their trip around the moon on Artemis II mission near the end of 2024. NASA astronaut Christina Koch is excited for what Artemis promises.
I'm excited that it's going to lead to an Artemis campaign that's going to put people back on the moon in a sustained fashion. We're going to take what we learned there and go on to Mars.
And I look forward to it too. Thank you for joining me. Remember each Tuesday to join David Denault for America's Return to Space, and join me every Friday for America in Space. From the Florida Space Coast, I'm Dawn Meyer, Space Coast News Editor for About Space Today.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to share our program with your family and friends and follow us on Facebook. Join us each week for news and information on America in Space.